Hello, Joanne Myers here, Math 150 at Franklin University. This is week number 3, where we're working with linear equations. I want to give you more examples of how to find and write the equation of the line given the slope and y-intercept. So here we go. Graph the line with slope 2/3, passing through the point -4, -4. The first reminder is fractions. If you have the fraction that says -7/4, it is the same thing as -7 divided by 4, which is the same thing as +7 divided by -4. The negative is not distributed numerator denominator. The negative standing outside of the fraction just says the overall value of this expression or this numerical value is negative. All right, graph the line with slope 2/3, passing through the point -4, -4. First thing you do is find the point. Ordered pairs are always written in the X, Y order, where the horizontal number line is X, the vertical number line is Y, and so -4 would go to the left 4 and down 4. So there's the point -4, -4. And then the slope is 2/3. So I would go up 2 and over 3. I would go up 2 and over 3. Up 2 and over 3. This would be the line that has a slope of 2/3 and through the point -4, -4. I'll do one more. Here we go. Graph the slope. Graph the line that has slope -1/3, passes through this point -1, 1. So -1, 1 is right there. You put the parentheses around the two numbers separated by a comma. That tells everybody reading this that, hey, these two different numbers represent one location on the graph. Now my slope, -1/3. So if my slope is a -1/3, I can also write that as +1 divided by -3. So I can go down 1 and over 3, down 1 and over 3, down 1 and over 3, or I can go up 1 to the left 3, up 1, -3, up 1, -3, up 1, and -3. So not only these points that land on integers, but all of these green dots that land at the fractions and decimals are also points on the line. This green line is the line that has slope of -1/3, passing through the point -1, +1. My suggestion is to use Desmos.com as you are working on these problems in ALEKS. Here's the equation of a line. Find the slope and the y-intercept, and then graph. So I'm going to rewrite in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, and the point 0, b is the y-intercept. It's where your line will actually cross the y-axis. So given 3x plus 6y equals 24, I want the y all by itself. So you and I are going to choose to do whatever we want to both sides of the equation. And my iPad froze, one moment. All right, so I'm subtracting 3x from both sides of the equation. Keeping the equal signs lined up, the left side becomes 6y. The right side is 24 minus 3x. I can also write that as minus 3x plus 24. I like to have the term with the x variable in front. Quick review. 24 minus 3x is the same thing as a negative 3x plus 24. Because they're the same value, you can use whichever one is more conducive to you finishing your work quickly and effectively. Now, when I'm dividing the right side by a fraction, each term is divided by that fraction. So this becomes negative 3/6 times x plus 24 divided by 6. Always reduce your fractions or Alex will give you a very hard time. Here is my equation written in slope-intercept form. This tells me that my slope is negative 1/2. My y-intercept is at 4, or in other words, the point 0, 4 on the number line. So if I'm going to graph this using the slope and y-intercept, 0, 4 would be right there. A slope of negative 1/2 means for every one I go down, I go to the positive right direction 2. Also, for every one I go up, I go to the left 2. Positive 1, negative 2, positive 1, negative 2. Slope is the change in y divided by your change in x. The equation we use is a specific value of y minus a different specific value of y, divided by the first corresponding x. So x subscript 2 minus x subscript 1, where you have the points x subscript 1, y subscript 1, and x subscript 2, y subscript 2 are your points. And they want me to graph the line. Alex, make sure you know how to use the graphing feature. And there you go. All right, and these examples are the same. Here we go. Now, to write the equation of the line, 2 steps, and then you write it. Step 1, find your slope. Step 2, find the y-intercept, or your b. Step 3 is write y equals mx plus b, where you have a number for m and a number for b. And there is your slope-intercept form. So, part A, write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that has y-intercept 1 and slope 3. So that's telling me that my b is 1 and my m is 3. So all I need to write is y equals mx plus b, where m is 3 and b is 1. Done. B, write an equation in slope-intercept form where the slope is 3/4 and the y-intercept is 2. So y equals 3/4 x plus 2. Done. That's all you're being asked to do. C, write an equation in slope-intercept form given the slope and a point. A line passes through the point -10, -2 and has slope of -3/2. So they're telling us that our -3/2 is our slope. This -10, -2 is giving us a very specific xy value, one specific xy value that makes the equation true. So now we know that m is -3/2. People usually put the negative up in the numerator. It's just a courtesy to whoever's reading your work to know, hey, this is negative. Computers, they always put the negative hanging out in front of the fraction. Personally, when I write it like that, it's possible I might misread it. So some specific x is -10. If my x value is -10, then the partner y value has to be -2. So I'm given this. So step 1, I know my m is -3/2. Step 2, find b. To find my b, I'm going to use my equation, y equals mx plus b. This is true for the value where x is 10 and y is negative 10 and y is negative 2. So write it in there. Negative 2 is the same thing as my slope, which is negative 3/2, times my x, which is negative 2, plus b. Notice I wrote, sorry, my x is negative 10. Because I'm multiplying negative 10 by a fraction, negative 3/2, I choose to write negative 10 as a fraction. Multiplying fraction to fraction, you just multiply across, write it all down, it's a little bigger. So I have negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 10 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. Now I have negative 2 plus 15 is the same thing as b. I want b by itself. What's blocking my goal is that positive 15. So what we randomly choose to do to both sides of the equation is subtract both sides by negative 15, and I'm out of space. So negative 17 is the same thing as b, because I'm subtracting this right here. So my b is negative 17. So that was step 1. Step 2 is find b. Step 3 is write the equation. Write y equals mx plus b, filling in your m and b. M is negative 3/2. I need the x and the y plus a negative 17. So if it were a multiple choice question, this here in the blue box is how the final answer would look for part C. We did step 1, step 2, and step 3. Find your m, find your b, and then write y equals mx plus b, putting a numerical value in for the m and the b. D, the line passes through this point and has a slope of 4/3, same process. E, the line passes through this point, 8,5, and has a slope of 5/4, same process. Step 1, find your m, okay? M is 5/4. Step 2, I have y equals mx plus b, and I know that my m is 5/4, right here. I know one specific xy value right here. So my x is going to be 8. My iPad is not cooperating. And my y is going to be 5. So I write y equals m, which is 5/4, times x, which is 8, plus b. Now I have one equation with one variable. It's just a matter of time until we can isolate that variable and know what the answer is. 5 times 8 is 40. So 5 is the same thing as 10 plus b. I want b by itself. I've simplified each side. Now I'm going to do whatever I want to both sides of the equation to isolate the b, and so it's a negative 5. So my b is negative 5. My m is 5/4. Write the equation. Step 3. There we go. Y equals mx plus b. I recommend writing the general form every time until you have it fully memorized. So 5/4 x plus my b, which is a negative 5, plus a negative 5 is just minus 5. And that is your final answer. So you know you are done when you have an equation that has an x and a y in it. If it's x equals, it's just a vertical line. If it's y equals, it's a horizontal line. If it's any line other than vertical or horizontal, you can rewrite it in the form y equals mx plus b. All right, so now consider this line, y equals 7x minus 1. What's the slope of a line parallel to this? What's the slope of a line perpendicular to this? So this one has slope m equals 7. It is not 7x, it is just 7. It is only this number in front of the x. So parallel to this line would be m equal to 7. Perpendicular to this line is the negative reciprocal. So here's the thought bubble. 7 is the same thing as 7 over 1. So the reciprocal would be 1 over 7. When the lines are perpendicular, one is positive, one is negative, and they are reciprocals. If you're going to multiply your slope parallel times your slope perpendicular, you will get an answer of -1. 7 times -1 over 7 is -1. So, cool trick about perpendicular slopes. When the lines are perpendicular, the slopes are negative reciprocal. All right. Slope of a line perpendicular, okay? This line has slope -5. So the slope perpendicular is going to be the reciprocal, and change the sign. Parallel to this, the slope parallel to that one will be exactly the same, -5. So perpendicular will be +1/5. Parallel will be -5 because our original slope was -5. Right. Find the slope of a line parallel and perpendicular to a given line. Here's the format. I can't tell what the slope is right away. So I need to rewrite this in slope-intercept form. So I want the y by itself. So I'm going to get rid of or move the term with the 4x. My left side will still be -5y. My right side is my right side is adding and subtracting two things. I have a 4 and a -4x that are both being added together. You're allowed to add in any order that you want. So I put the -4x first, and then this +4 at the end. Now what's blocking my goal from keeping y by itself is this -5. It's multiplication, so I choose to divide both sides by the same thing. So now I have -4 divided by -5 plus a 4 divided by -5. And my iPad froze. 1 second. All right. So negative divided by negative is positive. So I would write this as 4/5 x. Positive divided by negative is negative. And my iPad froze again. All right. So positive 4 divided by -5 is the same thing as -4/5. So y equals 4/5 x minus 4/5 is the same thing as the original equation 4x minus 5y equals 4. So what is the slope perpendicular to this? Well, this slope is 4/5. So this line has slope 4/5. So the slope perpendicular will be 5/4. Instead of positive, we need to make it negative. B, what's the slope parallel to? And two straight lines is the abbreviation for parallel. Parallel is just exactly the same thing. Now, from this format here by the green star, we know our y-intercept is -4/5. So 0, -4/5 is a point on the line. This question is not asking that. I'm just trying to tie the prior knowledge to this. Number 2, same thing. Rewrite the equation into slope-intercept form, and then you can see the slope for parallel and perpendicular quite easily. Wrapping up here, again, use Desmos.com, put these equations into Desmos.com, type them exactly as they are, and you will see which ones are parallel, which ones are perpendicular, and which ones are neither. So line number 1 has a slope of 2/5. Line number 2, I can't quite tell, but if I divide both sides by 5, now I can tell. Now I have y equals 2/5 x plus 3/5. For this equation is the same as this equation, and my slope is 2/5. All right, so line number 2, the slope is also 2/5. For line number 3 here, I subtracted 10x from both sides. I now need to divide both sides by a -4. And so my equation will be y equals -10 divided by -4. Negative divided by negative is positive. 10 divided by 4 simplifies to be 5/2. -4 divided by -4 is a +1, and my slope is 5/2. So given this information, I can tell that line number 1 and line number 2 are parallel. And line number 3 is not perpendicular. Line number 3 is the reciprocal. 5/2 and 2/5 are reciprocals, but they're not negative reciprocals, meaning one's a positive, one's a negative. So the question here, for each pair of lines, determine whether they are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So line 1 is parallel to line 2. Line 3 is not parallel or perpendicular to lines 1 or 2. So line 3 is neither. And my screen share quit. All right, so for number 1, the equation of these 3 lines, line 1, line 2, and line 3, line 1 and 2 are parallel. The 2 parallel looking lines is a symbol for parallel. And then line 3 is not parallel, and it is not perpendicular. So here's your notation for parallel, and here is your notation for perpendicular. Even though 2/5 and 5/2 are reciprocals of each other, they are not negative reciprocals, where one is negative, one is positive. All right, for number 2, same thing. Solve each equation, put it in slope-intercept form. The slope for this one is 5/2. It's the same problem, not quite. The slope for this one is 5/2. This one, now first you have to subtract the 4x from both sides. That will give you 10y is the same thing as negative 4x plus 6. Then you're dividing both sides by a negative 10. This becomes 1y. So I would have y equals negative 4 divided by negative 10 is 2/5. And 6 and 10 reduce by 2 to give you 3/5. So this slope would be 2/5. So again, same answer. Lines 1 and 2 are parallel. Line 3 is not parallel or perpendicular to the others. Word problems. Please watch the additional video provided. Just as because putting money into a checking account, let Y represent the total amount of money in the account. Let X represent how many weeks Jessica's adding the money. Suppose X and Y are related by this equation. Y equals 5X plus 650. Well, that means she's got $650 originally in the account. When X is 0, at week 0, 0 times 50 is 0. The Y value would be $650. Then every week she's putting $50 into the account. All right, note that a change can be an increase or a decrease. For an increase, use a positive number. For a decrease, use a negative number. What's the starting amount of money in the account? $650. When X equals 0, at week number 0, then we can use this equation to say Y is 50 times 0 plus 650. So 0 plus 650 is just 650. What is the change per week? Change per week is $50. This is the rate of change. This is the slope. So in word problems, rate of change is your friend because it tells you the slope. It will also tell you the steepness of your line when you graph the equation. Keep the questions coming and don't give up.